It was that time of evening when the water turns orange and pink and the mosquitoes start to come out. We were all gathered in my parents' cabin for what was supposed to be a nice, quiet weekend. My father had built that cabin with his own hands 30 years ago. It was his pride and joy. Every summer, we would all come up here. It was a tradition. My brother and his wife were there. My sister and her new boyfriend were there. My parents were there, and I was there with my wife. We had not all been together in the same room for over a year. The last time we tried this, it ended with my brother throwing a plate of potato salad at my sister. That was a different summer, a different argument. The cabin was small. It had one main room with a kitchen and a dining table and a big stone fireplace. There were two small bedrooms off to the side. My parents slept in one, my brother and his wife in the other. The rest of us slept on pull-out couches and air mattresses in the main room. It was cozy but crowded. The air was thick with the smell of pine and lake water and burning wood from the fire my father had started, even though it was not cold. He liked the fire. He said it made the place feel like a home. We were all sitting around the table, eating my mother's famous chili. It was a recipe she had learned from her own mother, and she guarded it like a state secret. My brother was telling a story about his new job. He worked in sales. He was always working in sales. He would change companies every 2 years, but the story was always the same. He was the best. He was making the most money. Everyone else was a fool. His wife nodded along and smiled. She was a quiet woman. She had been quiet for the 15 years they had been married. My sister was not quiet. She was loud, and she laughed at everything, and she was telling her new boyfriend about the time she got stuck in a tree at this very cabin when she was 12. The boyfriend was a musician. He had long hair and a beard, and he wore a hat that looked like it had been through a war. He was trying very hard to fit in. My wife was helping my mother clean up the pots and pans. My wife was good at that. She knew when to help and when to stay out of the way. I was just sitting there. I was watching the fire and listening to the noise of my family. It was a familiar noise. It was a comforting noise in a way, but there was a tension under it. There was always a tension under it. The argument started over the deck. My father had built a new deck on the back of the cabin that summer. It was a beautiful deck. It had a railing and steps that went down to the water. He was proud of it. He wanted to show it off. He asked my brother what he thought. My brother said it looked nice. Then my sister said it looked crooked. She was not trying to be mean. She was just stating a fact. She was an architect. She looked at things differently. She saw angles and lines and symmetry. My father did not like to hear that his work was crooked. He said it was not crooked. He said it was the way the ground sloped. My sister said the ground did not slope that much. My brother said it did not matter. My sister said it mattered because it was a safety hazard. My father said it was not a safety hazard. He had walked on it 100 times. My brother said my sister was being dramatic. My sister said my brother was being a coward. My father slammed his hand on the table. The chili bowls jumped. My mother told everyone to calm down. My wife came over and sat next to me. She put her hand on my knee. She knew what was coming. Then my sister brought up the money. It always came back to the money. She said my father had spent all this money on a new deck when he could have used that money to fix the roof. The roof had been leaking for 3 years. My father said the roof was fine. My sister said the roof was not fine. She pointed to a dark spot on the ceiling above the kitchen table. That water stain was new. My brother said the deck was a good investment. It added value to the property. My sister said they were not selling the property. The property was supposed to stay in the family. That was the whole point. My father looked at my brother. My brother looked at the floor. My wife squeezed my knee. She knew all of this. We had talked about it on the drive up. We had talked about how my father was getting old and how he was making bad decisions. We had talked about how my brother was always taking my father's side because he wanted to inherit the cabin. We had talked about how my sister was always fighting with my father because she wanted to be in control. We had talked about how I was stuck in the middle. I always was. I was the middle child. I was the one who kept the peace. I was the one who told everyone to calm down while my wife squeezed my knee. The next part of the argument was about the will. My sister said it out loud. She said she knew my father had changed the will. She said she knew my brother was getting the cabin. My father turned red. His face was always red, but now was a deep, angry red. He said that was not true. He said he had not changed anything. My brother said my sister was paranoid. My sister said she was not paranoid. She had seen the papers. She had found them in my father's desk drawer at home. My father stood up from the table. He was a tall man, but he was hunched over from years of working on cars and boats and roofs. He said my sister had no right to go through his things. My sister said she had every right. She was his daughter. My brother said she was a snoop. My sister called my brother a liar. My mother started to cry. It was a quiet cry. She always cried when things got bad. My wife got up and went over to my mother. She put her arm around her. She led her into the bedroom. The rest of us were left at the table. The fire crackled. The lake water lapped against the dock. The mosquitoes buzzed against the screens. My sister's boyfriend did not know what to do. He sat there with his long hair and his hat and his hands in his lap. He looked at me. He looked at my brother. He looked at my father. He said maybe we should all just take a breath. My father told him to shut up. He told him he did not know anything about family. He told him he was just a guest. My sister's boyfriend nodded. He said okay. He said he was sorry. My sister told my father not to talk to her boyfriend that way. My father said he would talk to anyone any way he wanted. This was his cabin. This was his family. My brother stood up. He said he was tired of this. He said we were all adults. He said we should act like it. My sister stood up too. She said my brother only wanted to act like an adult when it suited him. She said he was a child when it came to responsibility. She said he had never helped with the cabin. He had never helped with the roof. He had never helped with anything. My brother said that was because he lived 3 hours away. My sister said she lived 2 hours away, and she still came up every summer to help. My brother said she came up to criticize. My sister said she came up to care. I looked at my father. He was staring at the fire. He was not looking at my brother or my sister. He was looking into the flames. I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking about all the summers he had spent at this cabin. He was thinking about building the dock and the shed and the new deck. He was thinking about my mother and her chili and her crying in the bedroom. He was thinking about his children and how they could not stop fighting. I stood up. I said enough. I said we were all going to go outside and look at the stars. I said we were going to take a walk down to the dock. I said we were going to be a family for 10 minutes without yelling. My brother looked at me like I was crazy. My sister looked at me like I was weak. My father looked at me like I was him. He nodded. He said okay. We all walked outside. The air was cool and clean. The stars were starting to come out. The lake was dark and smooth like glass. We walked down to the dock. My brother and his wife stood at the end. My sister and her boyfriend sat down on the edge with their feet hanging over the water. My father and I stood in the middle. We did not say anything for a long time. We just listened to the water and the crickets and the sound of my mother crying through the cabin walls. My father put his hand on my shoulder. He said he was sorry. He said he did not mean for this to happen. He said he just wanted one good weekend. I told him it was okay. I told him we would figure it out. He shook his head. He said he had changed the will. He said he had left the cabin to my brother. He said my sister was right. He said he did it because my brother needed the stability. He said my sister was strong enough to make her own way. He said he was sorry he did not tell me. He said he knew I would understand. I did understand. I always understood. My wife came out of the cabin. She walked down to the dock. She stood next to me. She took my hand. She did not say anything. She did not need to say anything. My father walked away. He went back inside to my mother. My brother and his wife walked back inside. My sister and her boyfriend walked back inside. I stayed on the dock with my wife. We looked up at the stars. We looked down at the water. We did not say anything for a long time. Then my wife said we should go home. She said we should go home and sleep in our own bed. She said we could come back in the morning. I nodded. I said okay. We walked back up to the cabin. We packed our things. We said goodbye to everyone. My mother hugged me. My father shook my hand. My brother nodded. My sister smiled. My wife and I got in the car. We drove away from the lake. The headlights cut through the dark trees. The cabin disappeared behind us. I watched it fade in the rearview mirror. I knew I would be back. I knew we all would be back. That was what families did. They fought, and they yelled, and they said terrible things. Then they came back together. Then they sat around a fire and ate chili and pretended everything was fine. It was not fine. It was never fine, but it was ours. That was enough for now. We drove through the dark. My wife fell asleep in the passenger seat. I kept my eyes on the road. I thought about the deck and the roof and the will. I thought about my father and his red face and his shaking hands. I thought about my brother and my sister and all the years of fighting. I thought about my mother and her crying. I thought about my wife and her hand on my knee. I did not have any answers. I did not think there were any answers. There was only the road and the dark and the memory of the lake. I drove on. The night was quiet. The stars were bright. The world was still spinning. And I was still in the middle. I was always in the middle. That was my place. That was my role. That was my life. I accepted it. I had no other choice. I drove until the sun started to come up. Then I pulled into our driveway. I turned off the engine. I sat there for a moment. My wife stirred. She opened her eyes. She asked if we were home. I said yes. She said good. She smiled. She got out of the car. I followed her inside. The house was dark and quiet. It felt strange after the cabin. It felt empty, but it was ours. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I climbed into bed. I closed my eyes. I thought about the lake one more time. Then I fell asleep. I dreamed of the water. I dreamed of the stars. I dreamed of my father standing on the dock. He was not yelling. He was just standing there. He was looking at me. He was smiling. He waved. I waved back. Then I woke up. It was morning. The sun was shining through the window. My wife was making coffee. I could smell it from the bed. I got up. I walked into the kitchen. She handed me a cup. I took a sip. It was hot and bitter and good. She asked me how I was feeling. I said I was fine. She asked me if we were going back to the cabin. I said we would go back in a few weeks. She said okay. She said she would make a salad. I said that sounded good. We sat at the kitchen table. We drank our coffee. We did not talk about the fight. We did not talk about the will. We did not talk about my father or my brother or my sister. We just sat there. We listened to the birds outside. We watched the sun climb higher in the sky. It was a new day. It was a clean day. It was a day without yelling. It was a day without tears. I thought about the cabin. I thought about the deck and the roof and the water stain on the ceiling. I thought about my father and his red face. I thought about my mother and her chili. I thought about my brother and his sales pitches. I thought about my sister and her angles. I thought about all of it. I let it sit in my mind. I did not push it away. I did not hold it too close. I just let it be. That was all I could do. That was all anyone could do. We finished our coffee. We washed the cups. We went about our day. The sun was warm. The air was fresh. The world was moving forward.